people with diabetes have, I don't have to tell you, have a lot of things that they have to think about on a daily basis, you know. Some people say, do you live for your diabetes, or do you just live? So what happens, does it actually sound an alarm? So you can, because I'm not going to look at that every 20 minutes, okay, to see if my insulin's okay. Most likely it is, but there's a chance that it could go bad. So it actually sounds an alarm that you can hear, and then you can check and see how long it's been at that temperature. Does it give you an alarm before it reaches the critical temperature? So as the temperature is going up, you have it set so that it gives an alarm like you need to pay attention to this. So in asking a number of physicians about this product, one physician came back and said, well, it's never really happened, maybe once in 100 years, where he found it was useful because he's traveling.
Mm-hmm.
Most people will carry some insulin with them, and then if they're going someplace for a week or so, they're going to have a suitcase, and they put an extra bottle in their suitcase. Well, the one in the suitcase is going to be in a storage facility on the airplane, and it's going to be outside, whatever. So it's happened where the cabin wasn't pressurized, you don't know, and obviously the product froze. And then you land, and the product is thawed out, so you would never know. So this, while you're sitting on the airplane, would give you at least some sign. You may not be able to do anything about it till you land, but it would give you warning that you may need to get another bottle of insulin, because it could save your life. Most people that I've asked about this, it's happened to, I don't know how many people, everybody, I think at one time, where the insulin is not doing what it's supposed to do. So the first thing that comes across your mind is that it's not you, it's the insulin. Something's wrong with my insulin, maybe. So the next thing you're going to do is give yourself another shot of insulin to find out, which could be very dangerous. You know, so have you found other places where it would be very useful?
Yes, it's interesting you say this, because we always say that we are not in the cold chain business or the temperature sensing business. We are in the peace of mind business. The problem is the maybe. The problem is that you don't know. And the absurd part is that, as I said, the cold chain is very, very meticulously maintained until the point of dispensing it to the patient. And there is a number of processes and methodologies that are used to determine if any medication is still safe or not. For example, one of the processes, I will take it as an example because it's the easiest to explain and understand. It's called failure mode effect analysis. And how that works is you take a score that is made of the a factor of the severity of the failure effect. For example, what is the worst thing that can happen if this medication does not work? In the case of adrenaline, it's extremely high, of course. In the case of insulin, the severity can be either blood glucose levels not under control, even maybe falling into DKA, or just long-term complications because of blood glucose level not being under control. The second factor is the probability of this incident happening. So how good is a refrigerator, for example? In fact, there is a number of factors that are very, very specific. So let's say if this is in transit and it's in a truck, and the truck is crossing a border and there's a customs inspection, then that has a factor. Or if the truck has a flat tire, that has a factor. In our case, it's how well is the refrigerator maintained, operated, and how long the storage period is. And the third factor is the probability of detecting this. So all this is done very, very well before dispensing it to the patient. And if at any step you cannot monitor the temperature and log it of the medication, then it's just not good to be given to patients. So And this is just one example. And the older generation of doctors who are not used to the new technological improvements have a bias because they they know that they grew up and they operate in the 60s and 70s when this kind of equipment was only accessible to big pharma or to large logistics operators. Now everyone has one of these, and electronics cost is extremely low and everything is connected, so there is no reason not to extend these standards beyond dispensing it to the patient until the moment of taking the shot. So what's really absurd is that if the duration of storage of insulin or any other medication at the patient's home is much longer than any other step, because you get a quarter or a few months worth of insulin stock to keep it at your home, but then you don't have any of the safety processes or procedures before that. So if we apply the standards that are in the previous links of the code chain to after it's dispensed to the patient, that would be not just a no-go, but it would be a massive disaster. And some professionals understand this and they see the point in it. Others have a historical bias or a personal bias, but you cannot argue with the logic. I can give you a small example. I had recently an episode where my blood glucose was completely out of control, and I tried everything and it was just impossible. So I went to see my doctor, and the first thing she asks me is, the first thing she says is, we're going to give you a fresh batch of insulin, we're going to try for another 3 days just to rule out this probability or this risk factor, because what you're doing is you're troubleshooting one factor after the other. But I was able to show her that my insulin was stored properly the last 3 or 4 months, so it's not that factor, and we could immediately move to the next factor and test it, and we saved probably a few $100s worth of insulin and 3 days of frustrating testing on my end. So and I'm really happy to see positive feedback from professionals, clinicians, endocrinologists, especially at ADA this year. So yeah, I'm really happy about the positive feedback.